This episode is brought to you by Nespresso. Gift magical mornings with Nespresso Virtuo Pop. Compact and stylish, Virtuo Pop is made to meet every morning coffee craving. From espresso to coffee, hot or iced, at the click of a button. And celebrate the season with Nespresso's limited edition coffee flavors. Sweet almond and hibiscus, cinnamon and candied tamarind, and festive double espresso. Magic in the making. Shop the holiday gift collection exclusively at Nespresso.com.
With new, gentler scented Clorox disinfecting wipes, clean finally smells as good as it feels. On everything from lamps to ceiling fans. Even on your kid's toy shark. Oh, ouch. Clorox disinfecting wipes. Now available in crisp lemon. Find it on Amazon. Clorox. Clean feels good.
When I wake up, well, I know I'm gonna be the man who wakes up next to you. When I go out, yeah, I know I'm gonna be the man who goes along with you. If I get drunk.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome back to the podcast. A loaded episode today. And by the way, happy Thanksgiving. And I know I'm behind. That's the story of my life. But we're actually going to drop 2 podcasts today. Stuff we got to talk about, like Oklahoma City Thunder, big recruiting headlines for Oklahoma football, our SEC power rankings, all of that in this episode. The middle section will be about the Thunder. So if you want to skip that, you just want the Sooner football content, there it is, first section, final section. Then the next podcast we're dropping is going to be all about Oklahoma LSU, previewing that game. But like I said, we're going to talk about the Thunder handling business against Minnesota on Wednesday night, SEC power rankings heading into like kind of the chaos that of this final weekend. But before we get to either of those, I really want to talk about what's happening right now in Norman. Because whether you realize it or not, Oklahoma just pulled off one of the most important recruiting wins of the Brent Venables era. Now, not flashy, wasn't one of those Instagram live dramatic, moments that break the internet. Wasn't a stage ceremony or, some sort of graphics drop with 47 emojis either. But I mean, it was deep. It was important. It was big when Oklahoma flips running back Jonathan Hatton Jr. back from Texas A&M. What that does is for Oklahoma, we talk about identity a lot on this podcast. And that validates the identity for the Sooners. So, like, if you don't understand why, if you think it's just about a running back changing his mind, I think you're missing the story here. Because the flip is not, to me, it's not much about the player. Let me say this kind of clean and clear. This dude's a stud, all right? 4-star prospect, top 75 national player, top 5 running back in the country. It's the kind of back that makes, linebackers second guess their career choices when they've got to meet him in the gap. 24/7 Sports has him, Rivals has him, ESPN has him. They all have him ranked high. And they're going to tell you the same thing on all different fronts. This guy's not a project. He is a production. In high school, to over 1,200 yards, 3 straight seasons. 16 touchdowns in a season type of player. Verified track speed. He's got the size you want for this conference. The kind of back you hand the ball to when you absolutely need those 4 yards. Hatton is the real deal. But the story, like I said, I don't think it's about him. This is about how Oklahoma gets him back. Because this is a modern era of recruiting that's way different than just 3 or 4 years ago even. And typically now, with all the money that's involved, when a kid decommits, most programs move on, right? They might gripe about it. The fan base was, we didn't want him anyway. He doesn't fit our ID, blah, 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 right? They vent. We all vent out how this kid's not really who we thought he was, and now he's not going to fit the program. And so you got all this passive aggressiveness that comes into play when a kid decommits and moves on. But with Hatton, Oklahoma didn't move on. Brent Venables didn't move on. DeMarco Murray didn't move on. Now, they didn't chase either, and they didn't pressure. What they did is they did something very real in the landscape of college football in 2025. They respected the process. Now, let's flash back, okay? October 2023, Hatton commits to Oklahoma, right? He felt it. He calls Norman home. He called the fans his family. He called the locker room the brotherhood. But then life happens. Coaches changed roles since then. The offensive direction shifted a little bit. National brands come calling. So he reopens his recruitment in 2024. And you got guys like Ohio State, Tennessee. They all enter the chat with this guy. Texas A&M closes it out. So you go just a few months ago, March 2025, it looks like it's over. Another player gone. One of those almost moments, one of those what-if type situations. In Oklahoma, they were quiet. You didn't see panic. You didn't see a press. You didn't see a push. Just some patience. Just some authenticity for who they were, and where they were going. Staying connected to the recruit without being clingy. Because Brent Venables understands something that most programs don't. Relationships are going to outlast timelines. So you don't win with recruiting pressure. You win recruiting with trust. And then it happens, right? Hatton finally chooses one more time. And if you saw his statement, because this was a few days ago, you saw the statement, it was simple. Personal reasons. Now, that's the kind of answer people give when the truth is emotional. When the real reason doesn't fit like in a tweet or an Instagram post. He doesn't bash Texas A&M. He doesn't perform anything dramatic. He doesn't create problems. He just chose peace. He chose home. And that tells you everything. Oklahoma didn't win this flip with hype. They win it with integrity. They won it by being exactly who Hatton met the first time around. That's culture, not strategy. That is identity. That's why I talk about it so much, because it matters in moments like this. And you know what else matters is the timing, right? Oklahoma not running the football very well right now. Sooners are ranked 99th nationally. Yeah, injuries, sure, youth, but I mean, lack of explosion is there. It's been real. And then you got this guy. I mean, you enter Hatton into this, and it immediately changes the ceiling moving forward. You've got DeStephen Walker as part of this class. You got Bo Bentley, a quarterback. You got Daniel Oldham, a receiver. There's another, I mean, right when I started recording this, you've got another transfer flip. I guess not transfer, but a flip commitment from Wisconsin. So this is a not just a recruiting class. This is a reloading class, right? It's not something you're going to like slap some duct tape on it and say, hey, there's our future. This is something they are building. And Hatton is the guy. He's the guy you build the offense around. 3 down back, goal line back, clock killer, a chain mover. Well, we've seen this offense like to do playing from ahead. This kid does it. He is the game plan player for what they want to be. And it really is. I know National Sign Day is coming up on Wednesday, but this is the kind of commitment that changes your class. And even more than that, it changes your trajectory. And when you thought, oh, everything peaked with Hatton, nope, we're not done yet. Right? Because they flipped just 48 hours later, they flipped Markel Ford from SMU. Now listen on this, not a trend here, okay? Again, not viral, not something with all the hashtags, but this one matters just as much because this is the kind of player. Markel Ford is exactly what Brent Venables needs to build with. You got a 6-foot player, 190 pounds, versatile, fast, instinctive, plays both sides of the ball. We've got on our Facebook page, we've got highlights of both of these guys. But what's up there for Ford is defensive highlights. But you could do a quick Twitter search, X, and you can find a lot of offensive stats there as well. I mean, he creates takeaways on defense and he scores touchdowns on offense. That's the kind of guy he has. And playing limited defense this year, still 2 interceptions, still 6 pass breakups. He finds the ball. And that's really the only stat that truly matters. Coverage, yeah, that's great. But takeaways, that's what wins games. And we're not talking about luck here, okay? We're talking about momentum. It's not like Ford just woke up and randomly shows, I'm going to flip to Oklahoma. This happened after an official visit, after being there to watch the Sooners beat Missouri, after sustained contact with the staff, and then a late cycle evaluation, recruiting cycle evaluation. All that matters because recruiting, I mean, again, pressure's on. National Signing Day is coming, and that's when things turn a little bit different, right? It's easy to decommit or to commit either way when it's early. But when signing day is breathing down your neck, it's a little bit different. And Oklahoma closes in on Ford when it matters. Persuasion, alignment, belief, they were all there. And look, I know you're going to say, 3-star. I mean, SMU. Okay, I get all that. But look at the offers, okay? This kid is better than what the perception may be. Texas A&M wanted him. LSU wanted him. Tennessee, Michigan, Auburn, Oregon, USC, Stanford, Texas, they're all there offering him a scholarship. And yet Oklahoma wins out, not accidentally, right? Remember what's happening with Jim Nagy. They see value when rankings haven't put the price yet. And Oklahoma is able to, man, I know what I'm about to say, and I don't mean it to be a slight or a knock, but Oklahoma was able to buy low here. That's what winners do. That's the whole thing. You see a 3-star commitment with 5-star talent, 5-star projection, and you grab him. And now this class is suddenly a little bit different. 22 commitments, 11 on offense, 11 on defense. Ranked in the top 16 nationally. Again, not flash, but foundation, right? We're not chasing stars anymore at the University of Oklahoma. They're recruiting towards their system. They're recruiting towards their identity. And it's not about volume, it's about fit. And that's how Brent Venables is building a championship program at the University of Oklahoma. Not with hype, but with development. Ask Alabama how this plays out. Ask Tennessee how this plays out. Ask Georgia how this plays out. Go back to Clemson. You don't think they're missing Brent Venables at Clemson right now? This is Brent Venables football. And here's the bottom line. Hatton came back to Oklahoma because Oklahoma did not change. Ford committed to Oklahoma because the Sooners showed him who he could become within this program. One believed in the culture, one believed in the development, but together they make a shift. This program's not scrambling, we're stabilizing it, we're seeing it. We see the trajectory coming up over the last 4 seasons, and it's stabilizing. And think about in the world of the quick flips, Oklahoma played the long game for both of them, and they won, not because they chased, but because they stayed, not because they sold out, really because they stood for something. And that's how programs grow teeth. So we're not done yet. We're not done. We're going to move into a little bit of Oklahoma City Thunder talk. Thunder, I mean, they're doing work. We got the SEC upside down. What I mean by that, I'm going to give you 16 to number 1. We got rivalry week coming up. This, could it blow up our entire power rankings? A lot to cover, but one thing's clear on this first segment. Oklahoma football is building something real. I think you can feel it. And man, you can't help. You've got to be excited if you're a member of Sooner Nation right now.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. Black Friday Game Day on Prime is an epic day of live sports. It all starts at 9 a.m. Eastern with the Capital One Skins game. Then, Black Friday football returns when the Bears take on the Eagles at 3 p.m. And it culminates with the final night of Emirates NBA Cup Group play with Bucks Knicks at 7 p.m. and Mavs Lakers at 10 p.m. Black Friday game day, only on Prime.
In Walmart's Huluville, everyone ready their cart. Amazing Black Friday deals are about to start. Online and in the app, such great deals to explore. Everything you love from tech, toys, and more. The days to save and the ones to remember. It's only the 25th to the 30th of November. Set your alarms. Don't miss out. These deals are epic, without a doubt. The Who's are all ready, but are you? Walmart Black Friday deals await. Who knew?
Okay, so let me say this right from the start. Oklahoma City didn't beat Minnesota on Wednesday night because they were the hotter, flashier, or even more talented team, which they are. But they didn't win with fireworks. They won with something much more rare in this league, I think, at least from my perspective. The Thunder won with composure. Now, if you watched enough basketball, not just highlights, but you watch the moments when these games get tight, when the arena gets loud, your legs get kind of heavy, your mind gets kind of shaky, you know how valuable composure is in those moments. Because when the game stops being smooth, when the margin shrinks, when one possession feels like 10 possessions rolled up in there, that's when you find out who you really are. And on Wednesday night, Oklahoma City showed the league something really important, that they're not just talented, they are poised. This was not one of those Thunder games where they ran a team off the floor by halftime. We've seen plenty of that, right? Because recently the Thunder's been winning by an average of 22 points per game? But not this one. This one, Minnesota fought back. Minnesota pushed, Minnesota grabbed. They lunged at the finish line, right? Like a sprinter, kind of reaching their chest out there. But this was not a team in the Timberwolves that would allow themselves to be dominated in a way other Oklahoma City opponents have this season. And Minnesota made sure of that. And I think when you talk about what this game actually felt like, you got a low-scoring first half for the Thunder, I think, 49 points at the half? That's low. That's low compared to what we're used to this team being and scoring and seeing. But yet, even at that, they're still up. I mean, let that sink in. Because how often do you see that in today's NBA? A team that struggles to score, a team that gets killed on the glass, a team that is still able to control the game. You don't see that very often. But that's defense. That's what Oklahoma City is building their foundation on. You got discipline. That is this organization. And that sums up Oklahoma City. That sums up this Thunder organization in a nutshell right there. This was not about style points. This was about survival. And, survival basketball it's kind of like that. That's what championships are built on. And let's talk about in this game, let's talk about the moment everything shifted, right? I mean, we're late. 3 minutes left, maybe some change there. And Minnesota ties this game at 101. Everything got tight. The air inside the arena changes. That you feel the pressure. And that's where young teams panic. That's where this team in the past would have panicked. It's even the part where good teams get overwhelmed. But this is also where great teams separate. And you see the difference between Oklahoma City and Minnesota in this moment. Yeah, the Timberwolves come fighting back. But then what happened? They stumbled. Well, go back and watch it. Go back and watch the final 3 minutes. You got the DaVincio turnover. Shai comes right back and scores. Jaden McDaniels turns it over. Rudy Gobert misses 2 massive free throws. And then you get that 5-second violation on Julius Randle. That's not bad coaching. That's not bad luck. That's stress. That's anxiety. That was tension breaking through. We saw a team stumble. We saw them collapse. But what did Oklahoma City do? When that's happening, what are the Thunder doing? They didn't speed up the game. They didn't rush their shots. They certainly didn't unravel. They just did what they do. They executed. And that's the difference. That's the difference between these two teams. Definitely playoff teams. Definitely teams we could see once again in the Western Conference Finals. But there's not a difference in talent as much. Definitely not a difference in athleticism, but poise. That was the difference maker on Wednesday night. And we talk about talent. Oklahoma City has the most talented player in the league right now. I mean, SGA, another 40-point game. But it wasn't one of those like hot shooting, the guy can't miss 40-point performances. If that's your perception, you definitely didn't watch. Wasn't one of those flamethrower type nights. This was surgical, right? He was in control. This was like composure, the embodiment of composure in an Oklahoma City uniform. Watch how SGA plays, right? When the Thunder couldn't hit shots, he attacks downhill, he gets to the line. When Minnesota tries to speed up the game, try to speed him up, he was actually able to slow them down. And when things get kind of loose, he's deliberate. And then Minnesota goes hunting, right? They begin to collapse. And what does he do? Mathematically, basket by basket, free throw by free throw, possession by possession, he just responds. He finishes the night 15-17 from the free throw line. And that's important, right? Because you've got a game that's decided by 8 points. So 15 shots, 15 makes from the charity stripe, yeah, that matters a lot. And we learned this last year. And everybody hates it, but the truth is the truth. Championships are built at the free throw line. Now, SportsCenter is not going to tell you that. They're going to call him a free throw merchant. People are going to be on Instagram and social media, and they're going to be talking about how he baits fouls. But at the stripe, that's where games are won and lost. Ask Rudy Gobert. So we're not talking about scoring binge from SGA, but I think we can look at this and say pretty much a masterclass in managing chaos. But he doesn't do it alone. I mean, think about Chet, right? Anthony Edwards hits a huge three-point shot. Cuts it to just a 1-point game, around a minute left. Again, everything gets tight. Momentum is swinging to the other bench. What does he do? Chet Holmgren steps into one, right? Wide open, bottom of the net, boom. And that three wasn't loud because of its degree of difficulty. It was loud because of the timing, right? It was loud because of the weight of that moment. It was loud because of what it meant. That shot wasn't about confidence. It was about responsibility. And he wanted the ball. Chet wanted that moment. He wanted that shot. Not hype. That is growth. And here's the story here. The Thunder didn't win this in the last minute. I still say they won it in the first half. Minnesota, 32% from the floor in the first half. Not something that just randomly happens to a team. You got double teams on Edwards. You got ball movement disrupted. You got driving lanes just disappearing. The Timberwolves, they weren't just missing. They looked confused. And that's Oklahoma City's purpose. That's what they do defensively. They didn't let Minnesota do and run the plays that they wanted. They forced them into what they didn't want. And if you want to know what an elite defense looks like, there it is right there. Not gambling, not chaos, but structure, pressure, positioning. And yeah, of course, Edwards went off in the second half. There's a reason why he's an all-star. 25 points after halftime. Give him his flowers, because superstars get their points. But you never saw panic from the Thunder. You never saw them unravel. You never see them kind of lose their shape. They bent, but they definitely did not break. So look, Minnesota, they didn't lose because they didn't try. The effort was not the issue, but precision was. Think about the turnovers, right? 14 turnovers. 14 turnovers for the Timberwolves. 15 missed free throws. We talked about SGA for the charity. How about 15 missed free throws for the Thunder? And then bad decisions. All right, 15 missed free throws for the Timberwolves, sorry. But bad decisions at the worst moments for Minnesota. And the thing that I don't know that people are talking about is that sense of of rushing it, right? Rushing your offense, rushing your moments, rushing your sets, kind of forcing things. That sense of trying to make it happen instead of letting it happen. I feel like that's inexperience. And it shows up at the worst time. And even like, Chris Finch, the Minnesota's head coach, I think he says something after the game that kind of captures the night perfectly. Is he says it's kind of like we just watched two different games. And he's right. Like we did. We watched one team execute. We watched another team stress. And I don't want to keep going back to this, but I have to. Free throw line tells the story. Minnesota 59%. Oklahoma City 79%. Minnesota shoots 37 free throw attempts. Oklahoma City shoots 38 free throw attempts. So almost the same number of opportunities, but definitely a different mindset, definitely a different result. And you don't need analytics here to see what happened. You miss 15 free throws, you lose the game. That's basketball. That's just law in the world of basketball. And I think this is what bothered Minnesota. They didn't get dominated in this game. They lost the details. But the details, that's where champions live. And when you zoom out, and you look what this actually means for the Thunder. Oklahoma City is now 18-1. They've won 10 straight games. They're 3-0 in group play for the NBA Cup. And they're heading towards another run there. And they're doing it off of a performance that was not dominant. It wasn't a spectacle. I mean, honestly, it wasn't even beautiful, but it was defining. Every good team can win when shots are falling. Every contender can win when they're hot. But championship teams, champions, they win when they're uncomfortable. They win when the game gets ugly. They win when nothing feels smooth. They win when everything is heavy. And Wednesday night was this type of win for Oklahoma City because this wasn't about schemes. It wasn't about lineups. It wasn't about matchups. It was about the ability to breathe when the air gets thin. Oklahoma City, the Thunder, they breathed just fine. They trusted their defense. They valued their positions. They attacked the rim. They made free throws. They didn't panic. Meanwhile, Minnesota, they pressed harder and they cracked. I'm not trying to insult the Timberwolves because I think they're a very good basketball team. But I think that's a phase. I think teams go through it and some never come out on the other side. The Thunder, they've gone through that. We've seen them. We've watched them have those type of moments. But here's the thing, right? They've come out on the other side. And games like this, they're worth more. They have more value, I believe, than blowouts. Because when you get to April, when you get to May, nobody wins by 22 points. You win by 2 points. You win by 1 point. You win by a stop. You win by a rebound. You win by a free throw. So Wednesday night, it doesn't prove that Oklahoma City is exciting. We already know that they are. It proves something more important than that. I think it proved that they're ready, right? Do you remember the first two games of the season? The overtime games? They are so different now than they were 16 games ago. They're not learning how to close, right? They're not practicing being serious in the clutch. They're not pretending to grow. They are grown. And in this league, in this conference, as the postseason looms a few months down the road, everything's on notice. Because the Thunder, they don't need to be special. They don't need to be special to beat you. They are a terrifying team. They don't need momentum because of their maturity. That's how champions are made. So that's it. That's gonna break down our Thunder for this episode. Hey, do me a favor. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like. Make sure you follow us. We appreciate everybody who hangs out with us here on the Sooner Nation podcast. We're getting back to football right after this.
This episode is presented by State Farm. Having insurance isn't the same as having State Farm. It's like needing the protection of an offensive guard on the football field, but getting an elementary school crossing guard. Sure, they're both guards, but you can only trust one to keep your quarterback safe when the game is on the line. So don't settle for just any insurance when there's State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
All right, Sooner Nation, let's close this out the right way. We've talked about recruiting. We've talked about Thunder, but now, we usually do this on Tuesday, but again, I'm behind schedule. But it's time for that moment that I love this. This has been so much fun for me this season where we do our rankings. Not the AP rankings, not the coaches, no, not the brand name bias index. These are my SEC power rankings. Resumes, vibes, scoreboards, it's all there, right? Here's what I do this. Here's how I base my rankings. Saturday's approaching. Who do you trust, right? Who's built for the postseason? Who actually survives in this conference? And like every other week, we've got some teams falling. We got some teams rising. And teams are just exactly where they belong, particularly in the top 4 of this conference. So let's roll through this. We're going to keep with the format of going from 16 to number 1 because I want to build suspense with you guys. Not a surprise here, all right? We're not going to dance around this. Arkansas, number 16. This is a team that can score. We saw that against Texas last week. They can fight. They can show up. But what they can't do is play defense, right? I mean, look, you give up 52 points, it's not bad luck. There is a structural failure here. And this is obviously not going to be an overnight fix. I don't even think it's going to get fixed into next year. Maybe we'll start to see the turnaround. But you can't scheme your way out of this if you're Arkansas, all right? You don't outscore SEC teams for very long. And they can't. They just can't do it. There's foundational cracks. And when the foundation cracks, everything falls, right? So the Hogs stay at the bottom until they prove they can play defense, and they're running out of opportunities to do just that. Number 15, I've got Mississippi State. They were idle. I passed them up a little bit. That's how my power rankings work. I used to not punish a team for being idle, but teams around you are doing things and you don't lose, but you also don't gain ground. So they're staying at number 15. Number 14 is Florida. This is a program that's just been in a complete free fall. Think about this program, the elation of beating Texas to where they are right now. And they don't know, they just don't know who they are right now, right? And when you lose your identity, and we're seeing the same thing with LSU, when you lose your identity, you don't survive. There's no edge. There's no consistency. There's no reason for Florida to move anywhere up, but they just can't go any further down. So they're stuck. I got Kentucky number 13. I dropped them, right? I had risen the Wildcats. I began to believe in them, but Vanderbilt didn't just beat Kentucky. They embarrassed them. Now, this was not injury luck. This wasn't a weather thing. This wasn't turnover variance. This was one team walking into another building and owning it. So Kentucky takes a massive hit, falls to number 13. I've got South Carolina at number 12. Okay. Look, they're not going to go to a bowl game, but I'm bringing them up this week, bringing them up a little bit because I think 51-7 is going to mean something. Yeah. It doesn't erase their loss. Okay. But maybe it erases some doubts about their capabilities. And keep in mind that the power rankings, this isn't like a courtroom where you look at all of the evidence in one fell swoop, right? This is more like a weather forecast, okay? And South Carolina had a lot of problems, a lot of dysfunction. And I know the level of competition was nothing to be excited about. But the storm passed. They showed that there's still capabilities there in Columbia. Number 11 is LSU. They survived Western Kentucky. I don't know, man. I don't know that you can say, I don't know that you can say surviving Western Kentucky is actual surviving. I think it's a warning. Okay, this team, they're in trouble, looking for a head coach. They don't finish games clean. They've lost the ability to impose their will. They they should have dominated this game. They should dominate bad teams. And like I said with Florida, there's an identity here. And LSU is a talented team. I've said it for weeks. I'm worried about them coming into Norman to close out the season. They are talented, but they're not trustworthy. And trust matters a lot. So let's go back into the top 10 now. I've got Missouri at number 10. They didn't embarrass themselves against Oklahoma. They did what elite defenses do. They fought, they forced ugly football, they slowed everything down, but Oklahoma still wins this game. Missouri remains solid, not spectacular, okay? Sure, I mean, maybe they can inch into the top half of the league. I don't know that they're an upper tier team in this league. I don't think they've proven that, and not yet, and again, out of time. Crazy for me this week, Auburn, number 9. Yeah, I know. It was Mercer, okay? And I know that doesn't mean anything. I know, again, another coaching search. But again, they looked functional. They looked explosive. They looked alive. And when other teams sag, someone has to rise. And so I've got Auburn up this week, another team that I don't believe is going to go bowling, but they've had a good week. Tennessee, number 8. This is stable, not terrifying, not a broken team, but a stable team. And in this conference, that's not for nothing, right? Vanderbilt, number 7. Look, Vanderbilt, I know it's a 2-year thing here, but they're a legit program. They're not a feel-good story anymore. This is a real football team capable of winning against anyone in this league. 45-17, that's not luck. That was authority. And they're legit. When you look at the teams in front of them, they are right now as high as they can go. That might change. That might change after this weekend, because the team that right in front of them is Texas at number 6, and Texas beat Vanderbilt. But this is a team that they put up points, but Texas also gave up points, right? So this is the thing where you win the game, but maybe you lose some credibility if you're the Longhorns. That Georgia game, still echoing around where they were just completely dominated. And then you give up a lot to Arkansas. So I don't think Texas can move any higher than number 6. They're a dangerous team, but here's if I'm in Austin, if I'm wearing a burnt orange t-shirt, which thank the Lord I'm not, the word that I'm trying to avoid with my program right now is soft, but it's there and it's floating around. And I know they're all going, oh, you beat Oklahoma, blah, blah, blah. Okay, good. Yeah, you want to play Oklahoma right now? I didn't think so. Number 5, Alabama, 56-0. Looks great, feels great, tells you absolutely zero about this program a week after losing to Oklahoma. Alabama blasted an FCS team. Great. But guess what? Power rankings. We don't hand out points for warm-up games. We love the logo. We respect the logo, but the rank, Alabama's outside the top 4. Oklahoma stays at number 4 this week. And let's kind of work on this narrative for a second, okay? The Sooners did not beat Missouri on the road. People talk about this game as if they were playing away from Norman because of the Boo Birds and so forth. But this was a game. This was in Norman, and it started out ugly, right? Started out ugly, but Missouri brings a lot to this stadium. They brought a lot to this moment. You got the top scoring defense in the SEC. You got one of the league's best running backs in the SEC. You've got a scheme that's designed to suffocate quarterbacks. And Missouri did what Missouri does best. They slowed the game down. They made the game ugly. They shrank the game. But Oklahoma doesn't panic. The Sooners didn't force anything. They didn't melt. They didn't flinch. What they did was we saw them finish. Low pressure, high pressure. This was real football. You win on all 3 phases: offense, defense, special teams. And this all comes 1 week after winning in Tuscaloosa, where you could have had a letdown moment, all right? So this was a huge, huge game for the Sooners. And so if power rankings mean anything, if context matters, Oklahoma stays right where they are. Not because of their brand, not because of their hype, but because they earned to be number 4. At number 3, we got the Ole Miss Rebels, idle. but still a very clean team, still a very consistent team, still a terrifying team when they're playing right. Really curious to see, is this Lane Kiffin saga going to be a distraction at all going into the Egg Bowl? Something to keep an eye on. Number 2, Georgia, cold-blooded. Charlotte, again, you look at the level of competition, their opponent was never alive in this game, all right? When Georgia smells weakness, they don't just win, they exterminate. The most dangerous team in the SEC remains Texas A&M. I've got the Aggies at number 1. And they've got it all, right? Defense, offense, discipline, adjustments. This is a team that doesn't beat itself. And in the SEC, that's a very rare trait. So there you have it. There's my rankings, not for clicks, not for not for Saturday purposes, but look, no road wins get you trophies, right? No scoreboard style of points, no brand name exceptions. This is how I see the conference if they were playing today. That's the truth. And from a Sooners perspective, again, you got to like where they are. We've got another podcast dropping later on today, Oklahoma, LSU, Saturday. We'll have the complete breakdown of that game. But go enjoy some turkey, enjoy some NFL football, and